Hello, friends. Welcome to Pure Cringe, the podcast. We are two friends, book lovers, and Bravo TV superfans. Thanks so much for joining us as we review some books that are written by Bravo stars and rehash some of the greatest and trashiest moments in Bravo TV history. Welcome to Pure Cringe. I am Maria McQuaid, and I am joined, as always, by my beautiful friend, Michelle Barczykowski. Say hello, Michelle.
Hello. Hello, Michelle.
How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Excellent.
Good.
Spring is here. Spring has sprung. It's finally a bazillion degrees.
I know Massachusetts is now starting to look like a habitable place again, and
yes,
and I feel like it's the right time of year, coincidentally, to be talking about superficial, fun, fluffy things.
Happy,
and
because Andy's
happy, joy, and that's really what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be reviewing Andy Cohen's book, the Andy Cohen Diaries. I actually was really excited to do this because I did not know anything about Andy really in terms of his personal life, but I am over the moon about it. Are you ready to dive in, Michelle?
I'm ready. Born ready.
Let me just say before we begin that 1,000 apologies. I feel like I should have known more about Andy as the Bravo superfan I am, but honestly, Andy, to me, was the guy that just hosted the reunions. I knew he was an executive in the very early days of Bravo, but you didn't. Of course, he was behind the scenes. He sort of showed up to do the reunions with everyone, and you loved him, and sometimes you hated him. But for the most part, that's who he was. I don't recall ever thinking of Andy as his own entity until right around the time when this book is being written. So I don't know about you, Michelle. Same experience, or were you aware of him?
I was not aware of him prior to I think I knew about the first book, Most Talkative, and that was only a couple of years. This was written in 2014, so maybe the other one's like 2012. So yeah, but prior to that, I had no idea that he was actually the puppet master, as well as the face of everything. So yeah, I did. Yeah.
He is the face, though, which is crazy now to think that he has not only become someone who has written, hey, Pep, multiple books, but also somebody who is now like the face of that entire network, not just of like the Bravo, like the Real Housewives brand, but like literally that whole network. So it just blows my mind.
Yeah. And he does talk about in this book, he refers back a little bit, like here and there, to like his beginnings. Like where he started, so it's kind of funny because I kind of think of him as this he was like never an embryo. He just kind of came out this fully formed.
It's funny. I was going to say fully formed because it does kind of feel like that because we don't see any of that behind the scenes stuff. So we really only saw him at his best in some crazy suit, right? Usually sitting down and having to fend off Teresa or, someone from Potomac. But yeah, I feel like Andy had kind of an interesting trajectory. He went to BU.
Yep, he went to BU, and there's some fun pictures in this book. And there's one fantastic picture where he's in college, and let me just get the picture here. He's got
I'm so excited. I read of course, I listened to it.
Got long hair. And he's got on like where's the picture now? Long hair, and he's got on this like vest with like no shirt underneath it.
He's a deadhead, which I was really excited about.
Yes, and
I feel like he would appreciate Casey Jones.
Yes, and he's got like the worst long hair you've ever seen. It's curly and it's frizzy, and he looks like did you ever see that movie Hair?
Yes.
He looks like Treat Williams. The Treat Williams with like the frizzy hair and the suede vest. That's what he looks like.
From now, forever, it's going to be Treat Cohen.
Yeah.
He would love it. He would love to be called a treat. I feel like he would be okay with that. I feel fundamentally like he'd be okay with that.
I think he's adorable. Yeah. I think he's a treat in a lot of ways. I really do. Yeah.
I do too. And I didn't know he was from St. Louis. So that was really cool. I loved getting that behind the scenes info. And I loved, I didn't really, I knew about the Andy Warhol diaries, but I'd never read them. So I thought it was cool that he was inspired by them. Have you read those?
No, I think in graduate school I sort of brushed upon them. But I don't think I ever really like got through it. I remember talking about it like in a sort of critical form sense. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
I just thought it was hilarious that this guy that to me, Andy Cohen, is like super, light, fluffy, marshmallowy. He's a treat, right?
yeah,
That he would, be so connected to someone that I feel like is just, very deep. But then I realized that both Andys love pop, right? They love pop culture. That's their whole jam. So I thought that was kind of cool. So I thought it was a cool take on the concept, like a year in the life. I liked the fact that before each season and month, he sort of talked about at a high level, like what was going to happen,
yeah.
like in which I fell down and skinned my knee and, drank Lady Gaga's pee or whatever.
Yeah, no, I like that because you can kind of get like a little bit of kind of like what's ahead, right? Coming next.
Yeah, and I just loved I made little notes about like each season. And honestly, I thought it was really fun. I felt like, these were some of them were daily, some of them were over, a couple of days. But I
Hmm.
just thought it was really fun. Like, the idea that he's, in the beginning, he's really talking about obsessed with the idea of adopting a dog because he feels like he wants to give a shit about something else besides his own life.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I love the idea that we have this like ongoing thread, which is his waiting for his neighbor upstairs to die so that he can buy his place and
He's
create
like
a huge apartment.
he's like, really, I do not want this man to die.
Yeah.
I
And
just want his apartment.
he keeps asking Surfan, the doorman,
Uh-huh.
to get the poop on this guy.
Yep, totally.
Cracks me up.
Totally.
I thought that was really funny. I mean, as someone who's, I'm not a big drinker. I was astounded by the amount of drinking that he would just like do like just random shots of Jaeger on his way out
Yeah,
to leave work. Or I was surprised that he's partying as much. I mean,
he's partying a
he's
lot at the age that he is right
and he's
then.
a couple of years older than us.
Yes. And so I know at that age, well, I think at that age I probably had little kids. So I actually think I probably was secretly partying a lot by myself. Just not having a
True,
good time, trying
true,
to get
right?
through day to day. But he's busy, like he's really, really busy. Goes to bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
2 hour massages. Can we
Yeah,
discuss the 2 hour massage
I love
concept?
it.
What
I
is this,
love it. I,
Michelle?
I don't
Have
know. I
you
mean,
heard of such a thing? I didn't know that was a
no.
thing.
First of all, I'd have to get up and pee like 5 times, right? Especially if I
We're
was,
women in our 50s. We'd have to
yeah,
pee multiple times.
especially
Yes.
if I was drinking like, like all that alcohol prior, right? Yeah, the 2 hour massage, which is hilarious. I don't know how we find these people. This is just like, how do you find someone who wants to give you a 2 hour massage?
I thought that too, because he was saying, Todd came by and gave me a 2 hour massage and I had to kick him out at 1:30. And I was like, how much are you paying extra for
A lot.
for that massage, for that to happen? And also, I mean, think of it this way. I feel like this is like almost an on-call service for him. So I was like, I could go down a rabbit hole and talk for days about like my ideas around these massages because I was so into them. I think that was every time he had one, I was like, oh,
I
what?
think he does book
Again?
them because he talks about how he could never get book the guy later on because he referred him. So I think he
Oh,
must have
true.
some sort of routine. And maybe it doesn't seem like he's always having them, but it might be like maybe one day in the middle of the week he's having them kind of deal,
Yep.
like after a show. But the other thing I wanted to mention is he's got a lot of money and he's made a lot of references to the fact like okay, he's going to buy this apartment that the guy dies in, right? No problem. He's going to buy it. He does buy it. Talks about how he's wealthy enough now where he can go to like Miami and totally get raped, like, financially, and he's
Yep.
okay with it.
He's fine with it. Yep.
Yeah. But he never really flaunts like all that money he has, but also he has worked from the time he got out of college. I mean, so by the time he's doing this book,
True.
how old is he? He's in his 40s, his early 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's had a good 20 years of working everywhere, right? He's I don't know
Yeah.
where he first started, ABC, CBS. So,
CBS. Yeah.
yeah, so that's the product of like just a guy working every day, all day.
ABG, right? He's always be grinding,
Yeah,
Andy
always be
Cohen.
grinding. Yeah.
Yeah, he does. I mean, this guy is such a hard worker. I was kind of astounded by that. I
Yeah.
was also astounded by how much personal stuff he has to do that, like as an executive, because when we're sort of the beginning of this book is talking about his transition from executive almost to talent.
Yeah. Yep.
And so he still has to do all these things. He has to make so many calls. I mean, if I had made a list of all the calls that he says he has to have just with Real Housewives or their husbands.
Their
In the beginning, I'm
husbands.
dying to know. I'm still trying to figure out. He talked about one where I think a real husband called him up and was crying.
And was crying. Yeah.
Yeah, and was saying that like he had given up his business for it because the wife was not being asked back.
Yeah. And Andy was just like, oh,
I feel like I know who it
what
is,
made you
Michelle.
think you should give up your business? Who do you think it was? Who do you think it was?
So this is my hot take. I've been thinking about it, and I've been thinking about, because I watch all these shows, and I'm like, who kind of where the husband was like weirdly invested? And I really thought about it, and I was like, I think it's Kathy Wakile from New Jersey.
Oh, which I don't know who she is.
And she was on, like, she's actually a cousin. This is why I'm so excited that I have gotten you into New Jersey, because New Jersey is fascinating because these people are related.
Yeah, yeah.
So Kathy Wakile is the cousin of Teresa, first cousin.
Okay. First cousin?
First cousin. And they grew up together. Her mother, Kathy Wakile's mother, is sister of Nonu, which is Teresa's father.
Okay.
And so they have a very contentious relationship. It's awesome, Michelle. It's awesome.
And how many
it
times
plays out in a way that you can't. She became a full-time cast member. She was on the show, I think 2 years or 3 years.
Oh. And then the husband decided to quit his job.
No, yeah, well, I think he wanted to like manage her a little bit. She started doing food. She started doing so, and Teresa was bullshit, because I don't want to get too much into it, because of course this is not that show, but Teresa is bullshit because of course Teresa has been doing all of these cookbooks at the time.
Yes,
and
like
Kathy Wakile
Italian cook. Yeah.
Yes, literally. Kathy Wakile out of nowhere starts doing these desserts, which apparently she had done for years in real life, like bringing to people's houses or whatever. But she starts doing like this food line, and I think Teresa was mad. And so there was a lot of like friction. And then there was some familial stuff that went down. And then Kathy wasn't asked back. And so I'm thinking, because I'm trying to think of like what house husband, we'll call them, would have the balls to call Andy, right? And her husband, Rich, I think he's like, maybe he's Armenian or Israel. I don't remember. But like he's a little bit brash. He seems fun, but like you can tell he's not Italian. He's like Italianish, but like next level. I don't know how to explain it.
From a culture where like it's normal to just negotiate all the time.
Kind of like I want to say Armenian
or Iranian. I
want to say that like he would feel comfortable calling Andy and being like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And getting involved. So like I was surprised that Andy had to do so much of that.
Yeah, and that was not apparently the only husband he mentioned. There was another call. And
I'm stunned. I'm like, these people are calling him and texting him about this stuff.
And I hadn't thought about that. They call him and text him at all hours of the night, right? And then my favorite one was like fucking Ramona wanted the temperature set at 64.
She's such a shithead. Yeah, I mean, honest to God, Michelle. Like the fact that but he says such nice things about these people. I mean, spoiler alert on my review, I was a little disappointed that he didn't have more bitchy things to say. I really wanted, I don't know why, but I want someone to say, so do you know what he was talking about, the girl that was getting married and all she wanted to hear what was about who he hates?
Yes. Yeah.
I also only want to hear about who he hates. And I don't know if it's because of his sort of like happy-go-lucky, friendly, kind of bouncy, buoyant demeanor that you want him to be your gay best friend. Yeah. And you want to like dish with him. You want to sit down and go, okay, who do we fucking hate? Like who sucks? Yeah. And so I didn't want this whole book to be about that. That would have been horrible. Yeah. But I did want him, I was hoping for a couple of like well-placed like fuck yous. But
there were really no well-placed fuck yous, were there?
No. And I think that speaks to, honestly, the depth of the entire book. I think it's light and fluffy and cute. And I mean, the surprises for me were really how hard he worked.
Yes. Yeah,
during that
no,
year. I
for
mean, I'm
sure.
exhausted thinking about it.
I mean, I think
Um,
if he was gonna really be tea spilling a lot, I don't think he would be able to maintain the relationships he can maintain. I feel that he probably spills a lot of tea to Anderson Cooper about how people
I
suck.
love Anderson
I
Cooper.
do too. And
I thought he was sexy early on.
yeah, I think it's cute that they're like really good friends. And weren't they
We
set up
should
on
have
a
gone and
date?
seen them. Yes, we and they did a tour too. They did like like a nationwide tour where they just sort of like get up on stage and chat, and
Oh, that's
that
so
would have been fun
cute.
to watch.
Yeah. So I
That would
think
have
he
been
probably spills a lot of tea with who he thinks he can trust. But one of the things with Andy is I wouldn't say he's guarded. I just think he's very diplomatic and he knows the chess pieces. He knows if he says this, then it's going to affect that one and that one and that one. And all of it's going to come back to him in a phone call or a text. And in a practical sense, he doesn't have the fucking time. He's got, I don't know, it's good enough with the phone calls, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then he adopts a dog too. In the midst of all of this going
In the
on, these
midst
phone
of it.
calls, working out with a ninja,
Yeah.
7 hour massages, Tinder. He adopts, and also a house in the Hamptons, waiting for the dude to die,
Yeah.
waiting for Godot upstairs.
Now, mind you, he
Then,
never cooks. He
no,
never
God
cooks.
bless, I love him. See, this
Yeah.
is one of the things where I feel like very simpatico with
Yeah.
Andy. That's the lifestyle I always wanted. But the truth is that like you can tell he is looking throughout this whole thing to sort of come out of that cycle of just like being on autopilot. And I think
Yes.
that the dog that he adopts, which he ends up naming Waka, which I thought was Watcha until I
Me
heard him
too.
pronounce it.
Yeah. Me too.
Uh, um, and yeah, I thought that was really cool. And I will say, I really thought that that was if there's ever a good reason to adopt a dog, I think and honestly to be able to adopt a dog, a rescue a dog,
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason, right? Like you want to you want to give like time, love, energy to somebody else or something else. And
Yeah.
so I thought that was cool. He's the person who could afford to take care of a dog, pay for hip surgery apparently,
Yep.
which
Yep.
I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was interesting. I mean, you tell me, what would you recommend it?
Adopting a dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the
Yes,
book.
that and both adopting a dog and also the book.
Yes. So, well, I really enjoyed the book, and I did it a little bit of like, so I would like read some at night, like in bed, and then I also listened to the audio, like if I was like driving, or folding laundry kind of thing. So I kind of got like both of it. Very easy to read, very quick. And yeah, I would recommend it. And I love that he adopted the dog. He wanted to be more grounded, right? That was it. He wanted to be more grounded. And of course, he ends up just taking the dog everywhere. But see, then he takes the dog and he meets all these other people who are dog related people. He's just opening his circle. He's kind of amazing. He just really, really likes people.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem to get a headache from it at all or like, stressed out. He seems to know that this is the cycle it's going to be in, and then he gets a break, right? And he treats himself really well. So yeah, I would recommend the book. I want to read his daddy diaries because I'm really curious to see how it's changed now that he's got 2 kids. And because he really likes kids, he talks a lot in this book about his, like, does he have a niece and nephew, one of each? Or
Mhm.
yeah, he's got a niece and nephew, loves brushing her hair, which I think is really cute. He's got a lot of cute things that he says about kids. I love that he was, on Sesame Street with Elmo. He could be like a cousin to Elmo, don't you think?
Yeah, I think he's probably once or twice removed. I mean, his hair is a little bit less red than it used to be, probably in
Uh-huh.
the family. But no,
Uh-huh.
I feel the same way. I think he does have kind of like he does have like almost a stuffed animal quality. Like he has
Yes.
also has that like childlike enthusiasm that I find really infectious.
Yeah.
When I first started listening to the book, because I only listened to it, I honestly thought I was going to like kill myself after the first like 20 minutes because
Wow.
I was like, I don't think I can handle it, Andy. Those are real boobs. Like
I
I
hate to
don't.
disappoint. Yeah.
I was like, oh fuck me sideways. But then, honestly, I kind of fell in love with Andy a little bit, and I really respected the grind. Right, I
Yeah.
respected how hard he works. I love his relationship with his family. I really by the time it was over, I was really glad that I listened to it
Yeah.
because I feel like it does almost feel like I got to sit down with my gay best friend and dish.
Yeah.
It really does feel like that. And I ended up liking it way more than I thought I would for what it is, right? It's not meant to be literature. It really is meant to be a fluffy summer, listen to me or read me by the pool kind of book, right?
Yeah.
It's not meant to change your life, but I do think it's meant to entertain. And I felt like it really did.
Well, I do think there are a couple of lessons that you could learn. And
Hit
I,
me.
one of them was, well, he's maintained a really great relationship with his parents, which I love. And he's got enough money now where he can afford to just fly back and forth, right? I also don't think that I think they're pretty well off anyway, but, he's able to get them like some pretty sweet tickets to the Cardinals game. And,
Yeah.
so, and he takes time for them, which I think is really
Mhm.
important. And he takes the phone calls and then he tries to get his mom involved in his show. So, he's busy, but he's able to maintain these relationships, which, for New Englanders such as myself, who was afraid of people, that
Well, and he's definitely an extrovert, Michelle, right? I mean,
yeah, and
this is someone who gets energy from people.
yeah,
And so it's different, but I think that it really is it's nice to see somebody who has like a close relationship with his family like that. So I
yes,
think you're right. I think
and they're
that's definitely
supportive
something to
of
take
him.
away.
It's really cute. They're supportive of him, and at some point, like towards the end of the book, his mother's like, "Find a husband."
She's moved on from worrying about whether or not he's going to go on the Bill Maher show
Yeah,
and be outclassed, which 100% he would be, but nobody would care because he's like such a genuinely sweet guy.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think when he makes mistakes, we let it go.
yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So should we move on to our recap, which usually is a clip from one of the shows on Bravo, but for this one, we thought we'd do something special. And so, Michelle, you suggested, and I'm so glad you did, the video by Lady Gaga,
Mm-hmm.
G.U.Y,
Yep.
that Andy references in the book. I will say that the way that he talked about it to me made it sound like it was a big part for him, like that he had
Yeah.
lots of, I don't know if it was like screen time. And yeah, so
Well, I think we back up first with he had
yeah, let's start.
Gaga on the show first, right? So, and he finally got to meet her on his show. And I do want to say, so I got an invitation to go to Lady Gaga. She was playing at Fenway maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. It was a friend and I had an extra ticket, and I was like, oh, I don't really think I like her, but I'll go. Right? You'll go check it out. She was actually amazing. She was hilarious. She sings and dances. Now she's not like a fantastic dancer, but she's a good mover. She is just a real entertainer. She's very genuine, and there were like lots of it was a safe place for a lot of people. There were a lot of people who were, transgender or just dealing with a lot of things in their lives who were in the first row and they were crying and they were like up on the screen crying, and she was like,
Yeah,
they're like talking to them directly, and
yeah,
then she starts crying, and everybody's fucking crying anyway. So she's got a lot of sides to her personality. So I love that she goes on Andy and she has to pee in the bucket at the end, and she's just so instead of Andy getting mad, right? So I would have gotten really mad. I would have been like, fuck, you piss in my bucket, you asshole. Andy was like, that's great. Can you put it in a bottle? Like he has an assistant go put it in a bottle for him.
and then they go through the whole process of turning it into a perfume.
Yes. Which I think is talk about like making lemonade out of lemons, right? So
Yeah, I mean, he's friends with so many famous people that I would never have guessed.
yeah.
I mean, the fact that he's like, talks to Madonna, talks to all these people, and then eventually becomes kind of friendly enough with Gaga for her to
Yes.
invite him and some of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, which I have to say, as a Bravo fan, I did not know about this video.
I didn't
I
know
did
about
not
it
know
either.
about the connection with Lady Gaga. I
And
really had no idea.
he didn't talk about in the book, unless I missed it, but I don't think he talked about the fact that other housewives were in this video as well.
He did mention it, but it was only like because he mentioned Kyle.
Okay, so
We
I
just
just
talked about Kyle being there.
okay.
But it was like a one
Kyle was
sentence.
around. I thought maybe like she had seen.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like it was not a thing where it was like, so for example, I had no idea which, and when we get into the recap, we'll talk about it, but like, I didn't know who to expect to be in the video. And I didn't know what the song was either. I had never heard the song. I mean, I like some of her stuff, but I don't know a lot of her music.
Okay. So it's G.U.Y, which stands for Girl Under You, right? That's what it stands for.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. So she plays a lot with the these sort of, gender flipping things,
Oh, you're
right?
so good.
So I want to be your G.U.Y. So yes, so there's let me see. Let me just see if I can sort of break down the video, right? So there's the beginning of the video. They're at like the Hearst Castle, I think is where it is. The
Well,
Hearst
can I ask,
Yeah.
did you see the whole 11-minute situation?
No, 4 of it was credits.
So there's 11 minutes, and it starts with the dirty bird in the hole.
The Dirty Bird with like the Wall Street men in
Yes, and
black,
dudes in
cash
suits.
all over the place.
So literally, this is what I wrote. I wrote dirty bird in hole, art pop, Barbarella, because it gave me that sort of Barbarella vibe, right? Dudes in suits walk away. Gaga is a bird shot with arrow and has a bird nose, which I think now is actually her nose.
I think it's her nose, yeah.
And then I actually wrote, when is Andy coming?
When is
Then, then I wrote, this song is interesting. Big house, dudes in shiny plastic. She is brought poolside where there are dancers. She is veiled with flowers and baptized. And then I wrote, I am hoping for water ballet.
Oh, yeah, I kind of was too. We didn't get it.
And well, there is a little bit, but then it was the Housewives, the Housewives band, and I almost passed out when I
The
saw
Housewives band. Yes, yes.
I almost, if you had asked me who it was, I would never. There's a couple of people there, 3 actually.
Yolanda.
There are 3 people there that I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah.
Yolanda, who was like, "Where's Gigi and Adawan?"
Yeah,
and then
another one.
and Adawan, and then fucking poor Kim, who got out of rehab that day to come,
and they put her up on the wall, right? They stuck
right across from Kyle. She's like right across from Kyle at the top, and then inexplicably, Carlton, one on the harp.
Yes,
I was like, this chick is only on for 1 season, and she's so forgettable. She tried to accuse Kyle of being an anti-Semite, or no, Kyle accused her of being an anti-Semite, something like that.
What's interesting is that Andy did mention at some point throughout the book that he thought they could have done more with Carlton.
Yes.
Like he felt bad about that.
But they did her wrong. Yeah.
They did do her wrong.
Her edit was jacked up. Her edit was kind of jacked up.
And then who else should have? Lisa Vanderpump. Yeah. I know.
But like her, I would have expected, Kyle, I would have expected. But honest to God, Kim, Carlton, and Yolanda playing the fiddle, like so high. I mean, not the fiddle, the cello, so high up on the neck.
Really not.
So awkward.
Yeah.
So really awkward.
Yeah.
And it was like, and honestly, I kept waiting for Andy. And then literally, it's not until she emerges in white from like the pond, and she's like
Venus.
She is Venus.
And he's Zeus.
And he's Zeus. And you see his head kind of like bopping a little bit to the music.
Yep. And he's like, oh, yeah.
Right. Michelle, is that all that he did in the whole
that's all that video? He did. Yeah. For all that he talks about in the book, how he's going to take off his shirt and he's going to sing, and he doesn't have the whole art pop album.
He doesn't even know the song. He doesn't even really know
the song. And he's really embarrassed because Gaga just saw the song. She's like, you don't have the album? Anyway, so that's all he does.
I did. And it was in the upper right, and he just like literally just did those 2 things. Yeah. And then she goes to like Egypt or Rome, or I don't know where she is. She's in a tomb or a pyramid with more dudes.
There's a lot of mixed metaphors here. A lot of mixed metaphors.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, by the end of the song, I almost liked the song.
Sorry, now I clicked on something to find in an article.
And now we're going to listen to the song.
No, we're listening to, I don't know, some ad that came on. So what happens in the beginning? So I thought they were like these Wall Street guys,
Yes.
And there was money falling, and they fucking stomped all over her. But presumably she was already dead because she was Icarus and she flew too close to the sun, and
And she'd been shot.
that's how she gets dirty, right? Yeah. Well, no,
Yeah.
but I don't know who.
She
Did anyone actually shoot Icarus, or did you just fucking burn to the ground?
well, his wings melted, the
Yeah,
wax that held everything together melted and he fell. But
yeah.
yeah,
Where
she
the
was
arrow
shot
goes
though.
in. Yeah, I don't know, but so and then she
The
gets
symbolism is tough here for me.
it is, and then so all the guys, then all the Wall Street guys are, like sheep, are all like walking up to this castle, right? And then she's carried by these Studley Dudleys like she's Jesus, and then they stick her in some water, and she
Oh,
has a
that's true.
rebirth.
She was carried like Jesus. I
Yeah,
forgot.
and then she has a rebirth in
Yes.
water, and she
Yep.
emerges as Venus. And then she starts singing to Andy as Venus. And then there were some things that I missed that I was reading an article about. Somehow she brings back to life Michael Jackson, and who else did she bring back to life?
I
Um,
saw that. I was like, oh, I looked up and I saw Michael Jackson and went, I don't understand what's happening in this video. What's going on?
she's always got like a bit of like the
And she directed it as well.
yeah,
Isn't that the deal?
yes, but she's always got a little bit of like the kind of like of the sort of zombie effect thing to her life. She references that stuff a lot. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
and then there's somehow something like these. She brings Michael Jackson and someone else back to life, and then somehow these guys who were in suits get injected with something, and then they turn into like her hot, sexy dancers.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I far prefer them as her hot, sexy dancers. I was not
I,
into their besuited selves.
no, no, and that was it. But I'm just so bear with me because I'm really trying to find like this really interesting quote that I found about this.
Yeah. I
And
just honestly, I was hoping for more water ballet was really my
more water.
and more Andy. Truly, I mean, I was like, oh, after it was over, honestly, I was like, damn, I'm like, should we have chosen a different video? Because Andy is literally not in this video.
No, he's not. He's
He's not in
not.
this, but based on what he talked about in the book, that I mean, when you think about how much he had to go through to do it, and then for him
Yes.
to have a 2 second basically cameo, it made it sound like it was a starring role. But
Although it wasn't a way at start a starring role because she really, really needed him in it. Like it was because it was about
the father of reality TV, right?
yes, the father of reality TV. And then there's like a line in the song. It says, touch me, don't be sweet, love me, please retweet. Let me be
Oh,
the
and I
girl
thought she
under
was
you.
saying, please retreat.
Yeah, no, let me be the girl under you that makes you cry. Interesting. So yeah, she got
Wow.
some interesting lyrics. So
Yeah, it was a fun video.
yeah, so and then she said something to Andy later about she said something like she had a really good way that she summed up the video and like what it meant to her, and it was rather profound. And then she said it's probably going to mean a lot more in 10 years. And
Yes, I remember her saying that. And I was
yeah,
like, but then again, she's the Madonna of this era, and this will be like her sex book or, her.
yeah. Well, I also think too she was very right, because he's just continued to, to be the face of and the controller of, this massive empire.
And he's like a benevolent god, right? He's like the benevolent deity of the Bravoverse,
Yeah,
right?
he's
He really is the Zeus.
very far from a Zeus. I mean, Zeus is he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah, yeah. But but Andy feels like he would be a benevolent dictator. He's a good. He feels like he's a good guy.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And this honestly, this was a fun video. I'm glad you suggested it.
Yeah.
And so let's move on to our hot tea segment, which is literally
Yay.
spilling in my lap. So I have to spill it, Michelle, because this is so new. It is literally hot off the stove. So,
You said
did you have a chance to?
last night?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yesterday. So Andy Cohen went on a podcast. The podcast is the Smith Sisters Live, and we're going to try and link it for you guys somewhere in the podcast description. And basically, Andy goes on and he talks about Lisa Rinna and her recent departure from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. He actually says that Rinna quit after the most recent reunion.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole time, everybody, I mean, that has been the furthest thing from anyone's mind. Everybody thought she was fired because of her just behavior. Of course,
Yeah.
this season was
Yeah.
abhorrent. But he said that she quit. And I think that is going to be huge. He's actually out now promoting his newest book, which is the Daddy Diaries,
Yeah.
which sounds like a lot of fun. But he held on to that and sort of just released it. What do you think, Michelle?
Yes. Well, no, good of him to hold on to it, because it's a good talking point. So my suspicion is that Lisa probably wanted to leave for a couple of seasons. But she realized that she's like a forever twat, and she's never going to be able to leave on a good note. So that's my take on it. Like having kids, right? You go somewhere and you always want to exit when things are good. You never want to leave when somebody's having a tantrum. So you're constantly predicting when you have kids. My theory is that she was just trying to, find a way, but she couldn't help but fly up her own arse and just be a complete monster to people. I mean, that was her thing. And then, and I like how he questioned them. Were you leaking things about Kathy Hilton? So he did put them on the spot. He does put people on the spot in a very nice way.
I know, and I think that is what I like about him, is that I feel like for the most part, I mean, I can think of a few times where I've wanted him to kind of maybe go harder in the paint with some people.
Yeah.
But I feel like for the most part, he's respectful. And he does try to hold people accountable when he thinks that they're doing something. But I was impressed that he held on to this for this long, but this is a juicy piece of tea.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that a couple of weeks later, or maybe less than a week later, he says that her team starts to text him and call him and email him and start to talk about maybe her coming back.
A change of heart.
Yeah, to which the answer is like, no.
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, I thought that was so interesting. And honestly, I feel like this for me just sort of cements the fact that like Andy knows a lot. There's so much that he could tell us, but to your point, it would probably damage the relationship so much. He probably feels comfortable talking about this because she's gone.
Because she's gone, and because it's in his book, and it's going to, me.
And she was awful. You're right. She was terrible.
Yeah. So, and I think too, it's coming out in the book rather than her reading it in the book. Is one of the housewives wrote a book and said some shit about somebody. Was it
all of them?
All of them? No. There was one very recently on Beverly Hills. I think.
Yeah.
Who wrote the book?
Oh, was it Garcelle?
Garcelle. Sorry, Garcelle. She wrote a book, and then somebody read it and found out that she said something. So, Garcelle obviously doesn't have like the media campaign that Andy Cohen does, but that was, I think, a civilized way for him to do it, to sort of introduce, I'm spilling some tea about you.
Well, that's the thing. I think you're right, Michelle. I think he's really savvy about that. He knows when to do it and when not to. And I think that's the thing really to be learned about Andy, is that I think he's super savvy. Yeah. He knows people and he knows how to manage them. Yeah, but that's cool. I'm glad we got some fun hot tea. So let's move on. Do you have, before we wrap this sucker up, do you have a favorite tip or a quote or something that you were surprised by that jumps out at you for this book?
Something that there were a lot of surprises.
How about friendships? Was there a surprise friendship that he had? There's one for me that I've got to talk to you about.
I didn't know who all the friends were, Maria. I just.
Well, there was a famous person that he was friendly with, and I was like, shush. Oh.
There were a lot of, like, Joan Rivers. He was Sarah Jessica. Who else? SJP. Diane von Furstenberg. And
he's just trying to outdo Anderson Cooper with Gloria Vanderbilt. I think trying to come back with it's like, I know a 70s fashion icon too.
Yeah, but that's his mother. That's right.
That's Andy though. That's Andy going like, I have one too.
Kelly and the Consuelos.
Mark and Kelly, yeah.
Mark and Kelly, who like to have a lot of sex.
Gross.
I know, gross.
That's probably why though they are happily
married. So I don't know. I mean, for me, the hits just keep on coming. I don't know that I was particularly surprised by anyone. Who surprised you for a friend?
Right. Natasha Richardson, that he was that close to her?
Do I even know who she is?
Liam Neeson's wife that
Oh,
died.
that died. Yes, I had.
I did
Oh, okay.
I did not know that he was that close to her.
Yeah.
Like
He
he
never
talks about like that she
Liam
was a
Neeson.
very close friend.
He never
And
mentions.
he no, and it was funny because I was thinking maybe Liam is like, maybe Andy was the friend that he was like, I don't care for him, but like in an Irish accent.
Maybe, or maybe it's just out of respect to her.
Yeah.
Doesn't.
I just thought that was really interesting. I would have never pictured them as friends. Also Ellen Barkin, but that's something else.
Okay.
I was just like, they must have just done a lot of coke together. That's what
Well,
I'm kind of
it's the
imagining.
Jewish connection. You got the big Jewish connection.
Ellen Barkin, yeah.
Yeah, because there was like a shiva that he had to go
It's,
through.
that's true.
Yeah,
I was going to say her mom.
yeah.
Before we end, I came up with I'm going to surprise you. I came up with a new category that I want to float out to you.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about the cringe factor, because so many of the books that we are reading and so many of the people that are writing them have a relatively high or some type of cringe factor. That's what draws us to it, right? The fact that we're like, what? So I thought maybe we could start talking about that with each of these books. Like, what's the cringe factor here? And so for me, the cringe factor in this book is very low. Like, I
Very
didn't
well.
find myself like literally wincing or like cringing while I was reading it or listening to it. And I feel the same way about the author. I feel like Andy doesn't really make me cringe. I feel like for the most part, I'm rooting for him and I'm on his side. And I felt the same way listening to the book. In fact, it kind of makes me want to start keeping a diary. So
Really.
how about you? What's your cringe factor here? What do you feel like?
My let me just go back to like one of
Sure.
the relationships I loved that I love his relationship with Cher. I think it's adorable. She's
Yes.
like, text me. My assistant will get you my phone number.
She like can't exist without,
That kind
without
of
her
really
assistant.
that really surprised me. The whole Cher thing. Like, send me pictures from from the Amalfi Coast. Um, so
Yeah, like Rafe Fiennes. Imagine the two, he and Rafe Fiennes. What the hell are they talking about?
well, Ray is
Is
telling
Ray
him that
Fi-
he's gonna.
is Rafe Fiennes talking to him about Nini? What?
I
I can't
don't
believe
know.
it.
I
I can't
don't.
believe it.
I can't even imagine. I can't begin to imagine what the fuck those two talk about. I don't know. Um,
Seriously, it's like I can't believe it almost, but yeah.
but so cringe factor. The only thing I found cringy was that like he just like couldn't find like a guy to be in a relationship with. And that's really not very.
You felt like it was hard to listen to him, hard to kind of like watch that.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, come on, Andy, like surely, because at this point he's famous but not wicked famous. Like the only the right people would know who he is, so there's still plenty of people
Okay.
that he could know. But it's almost as if like he is busy giving attention to everybody else and not to himself. And
Yeah.
he's sort of like denying himself in this odd way. So I'm just curious to see like how like being a daddy is for him, like a single dad, because he's real tired now when he does the reunions.
Well, that's the thing. He's already toast. So if we're saying like that, my rating on like the cringeometer out of 10 would probably be a 3. What is it for you? A bit higher than that?
No, I mean it was like a 2. It was more
Okay.
like he's like, oh come on, Andy, get it together, find a husband, like his mother would say.
Finds a man, why don't you? Yeah, it would be interesting to sort of see how he's evolved. But yeah, I thought this one was really, really fun. And I would definitely recommend it as well. I think that it's a kind of a fun romp through Andy's life
Yeah.
that ultimately kind of kept me coming back to it and wanting to listen to it. And
Hmm.
it became the kind of thing that I didn't feel like I had to sit down and take a massive amount of notes on. It
Yeah.
felt like it was something that was interesting and fun, and that I felt like I was his confidant. So I really felt like it drew you in. I really enjoyed this one.
I did too, and I loved how in the end, he's on Fire Island, and
Mm,
he's having like the gay time of his life, and it's which I think is so awesome, and that it's so fun to be
he
able to
deserves
go
it.
and and feel safe and just be with like-minded people. But he also admits that like his younger self couldn't handle being in those situations with like
Yeah.
optional nude beaches, things like that. So and
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart.
no, not for the faint of heart. And I really loved how he was really finally able to really embrace that lifestyle. I have to go back and correct myself. I'm sorry. With the pictures, I talked about one in the book of him in like the vest.
Yeah.
That actually is not in the book. What happened was I went searching for lots of Andy Cohen pictures online, and there were all the ones in the book and more, and that's where I found the one of him. So he kept out, like, the only cringy one he put in was the one of him wearing that terrible Ralph Lauren sweater.
See, I see none of the pictures, so I just did the audio. So that's a really good thing to note. So for those folks who are listening who might be interested in the difference, ooh, there's color pictures. Yeah, so that might be worth getting, and you can see his hideous Ralph Lauren winter Olympics sweater that looked like the Olympics and Christmas threw up on each other or something like that. He said it's bad. It's really bad. It's as bad as it sounded. Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you, everybody. We are so happy to have had you today. Thanks for joining us as we troll these sometimes shallow but always hysterical waters of Bravo Celebrity Books.